So everyone, I thought this was probably quite a nice point to pause at. Lovely view, apart from all the building stuff. Edinburgh seems to be a perpetual building site, no matter when you come to it. Now my friends, soon we'll be going up the Mound, but essentially, as we go up it, you will get a lovely view. You'll be able to see down over the new town to the Leith docks, and we'll be able to talk. You'll be able to sort of visualise what we were looking at. One statistic that I forgot to mention, by the way, is that 121, huddle close by the way, I can hear the cars, I don't want to lose you. 121 addresses have been found in Edinburgh alone. 121 addresses of slave owners owning thousands of slaves between them. So it's a really incredible statistic. The majority of them are in the new town, and the new town slave owners account for 80 plantations across the colonies, which is crazy. And each plantation would obviously have varied numbers of slaves, but up to the hundreds in different on different occasions. It is mind-blowing how involved just this bit of Edinburgh was with it, and how linked it was. And I knew so little of it before I started doing the research for this. And if you're wondering where I'm finding all this out, I do not want it to be like I have secrets. Never mind. No, of course not. I will, but at the end of once I've written everything up and stuff like that, I'll be publishing a list of all the reading I did and all the links to different things. The main things with regards to Edinburgh's links to the slave trade that I found incredibly useful. The best one was the UCL slave map, because I found it the most shocking. If you Google UCL slave map or slavery map, you will be able to see in people in the plantations. You will be able to see people. You'll be able to see people in London, across Britain, and Edinburgh and Glasgow, and it's just shocking from my perspective. And that was what I used to find John Gordon straight away. By the way, I had 4 illegitimate children, and he managed to pass down his wealth to them in buying up various different estates throughout Scotland. So lucky man. I forgot that fun little fact. They were with his housekeeper. His wife was not pleased. It's genuinely in there. Wife left him. I was like, unsurprising. Fair enough. Now, essentially, these things are easy to find. The other one was a book, which is a collected series of essays by Tom Devine looking at Scotland's role within the slave trade. It's the first dedicated academic book, which was published just a few years ago, to looking at Scotland's role in the slave trade. It's brilliant. There are loads of wonderful contributors in there. Tom Devine, obviously, a very famous Scottish historian, and it's really recommended. But if it's quite dense and academic, that's totally understandable. The slavery map gives a lot of information as well. And finally, Jeff Palmer, some of you may have even been to it, gave a lecture at Edinburgh University not long ago about Edinburgh's roots and role within the slave trade, and Scotland's role within the slave trade, and that's absolutely brilliant as well. There were lots of other things I obviously read, but those are the 3 biggest ones I'd say that really I found accessible and helped shape my perspectives on Scotland's role in the slave trade. Okay, as we get further up, we are going to get that lovely view, and we get New Town and Old Town, and I think this marks a very nice breaking point in our tour. The two are very much connected, obviously, but they are also separate entities. So as we make our way further up, we are going to move from Edinburgh's role within the slave trade and the West Indies to Edinburgh's role within India and the East Indies. Now, I'm half Indian. I have grandparents from there who moved after partition, so I have a very passionate connection with it, so forgive me if I get really into it and things like that. But essentially, so we're going to be looking at Edinburgh's role within India. These are, of course, not the only 2 places and arenas where Scots influenced empire and went around oppressing people. But these are the 2 that I have focused on. It would be so much broader if you wanted to look at the empire of a whole. The British Empire touched upon 90% of the globe. We were awful. We got everywhere. But it does mean that researching it's good to focus on certain arenas. So India is the other one. The lovely, small, accessible India. Easy to get around. You can walk there. So what I thought would be lovely is if I was able to find a figure that connected the 2. And I thought that was going to be very difficult. It was not. There is a man called William Fraser. I was reading this Guardian article. I was talking about the Scots role in Guyana, and I recognised the name because of any of you read William Dalrymple's City of Gins? It's quite good actually. Quite a popular book written about Delhi. He was a British journalist, Scottish journalist living over in Delhi. Writes quite a good book on the whole. But he really takes to this man when he's writing his sort of history of Delhi, called William Fraser. William Fraser was part of the Fraser family, who had slave estates in Guyana, but they went very badly. The Fraser family had fought in the Jacobite Wars on the side of the Jacobites. So if anybody's thinking, but this is just the Lowlanders and the British, no, the Jacobites very much were involved as well. The hypocrisy of being able to fight for freedom while simultaneously oppressing somebody else was not lost on anyone in Britain at this time. or it was lost on everyone rather. So, and essentially, the Frasers lost huge amounts of money in Guyana. They didn't get their compensation that they wanted, and they were broke. They send William Fraser over to India to regain the family fortunes. And William does very well, but much to the annoyance of his family, because not only does he go to India, he quite likes it. He quite likes the Indians, or at least the elite Mughals. He gets on very well with them. Dalrymple refers to him as, which was a common term, as white Mughal. A white person going over and essentially adopting or appropriating Mughal culture and trying to really ingratiate yourself with it. So he very much enjoyed his time out there and was so successful that he became Governor General of Delhi in 1835. So this was his highest position that he coveted his whole life, and he was doing very well, and he quite liked Indians. He was quite progressive for the time. Dalrymple certainly argues, but he literally has little quotes of his diaries. I'm afraid I left the book at home. I do apologise. This is why it's a preview tour, so I didn't have a chance to write down the quotes, but they're literally to the effect of, he's a very swashbuckling figure, and he's sort of like, I was off having a ride and a jaunt, and then I came across a group of marauding Indian people, and they seemed quite angry, so I shot them with my pistol. And for those of whom that didn't do, I cut them with my cutlass. And sort of like, so it's just like, lovely progressive man, according to Fraser, who also sees a person of colour in India and goes, must hack to death. Like, nice, simple response. I know this is dark material, but it's sort of the way it gets portrayed in Dalrymple's account, and the way he comes across. He's very swashbuckling. So Fraser is this sort of figure that ties the two and shows how Scotland very much had its fingers, somehow in my head that's now India, in the East Indies over there. The south side of Edinburgh is synonymous with the East Indies and in the West Indies. One family spans the entire empire and spans Scottish involvement within lots of different arenas of empire. And we're going to go up to New College now. If you need time on the hill, just shout at me. I sometimes walk quite quickly, but if you're all fine, we'll go up to New College, where we will hear all about how the church were involved, and the university I will touch on, but not in a very deep way. But follow me.